Let's talk Tobago, or people, or places, or challenges and achievements, or needs and aspirations. Join us as we continue our journey into the future.
Hello and thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Tobago, where we keep you informed about the plans and initiatives of the Tobago House of Assembly and the impact that these have on you. In our stories this week, no corruption in the THA. Secretary of Finance speaks about the Auditor General's report. Did Minister of Transport Devon Mirage give a true explanation about why some cruise ships weren't allowed to dock in Tobago? Tobago's economic development plan gets updated. Tackling crime by tackling the youth. The mentorship program explains how. And international artists set Tobago on fire at the Tobago Jazz Experience 2012. Stay with us. We'll have these and more stories after the break.
Come, study the stars and explore the wonders of the universe with the Tobago Science Center on the 9th and 10th of May 2012. There will be a planetarium with a lecture and workshop at the Movietown Cinema Hall. Book early to secure your space for the Celestial Skywatch from 7 to 10 p.m. at Fort King George Lookout. Limited passes available. Don't miss your chance to explore the universe.
Secretary of Tourism and Transport Oswald Williams speaks out against Minister of Transport Devon Mirage for blaming the THA for the Port Authority's refusal to allow cruise ships to dock at the Scarborough Port. Mr. Williams was speaking at a recent Post-Executive Council media briefing.
I just want to say very briefly first that the minister is a stranger to this truth. That is not true. And I just want to give you a little background that will help to make this point very clear. The issue hinges around a dispute, an ongoing dispute between the Port Authority and Mr. Cavallo, who is a shipping agent for a number of the cruise lines that come to Tobago. The port is claiming that Mr. Cavallo owes outstanding dues on services for services rendered in the past by the port, that basically they were trying to say to him, pay up, or we're not going to allow any of your ships to call in Tobago. I am no lawyer for Mr. Cavallo or for the port. What Mr. Cavallo is saying, however, is that there needs to be a sit-down between himself, his people, and the port because he has been double invoiced for some of the services. I don't know if that is an unreasonable thing.
However, Mr. Williams indicated that the decision to stop the ships was taken without communication with the Tobago House of Assembly. He further stated that the THA was not informed about the decision even after it was taken by the Port Authority, but instead became aware of the issue when contacted by Mr. Cavallo.
How the Chief Secretary responded, he has indicated that this thing is so important to Tobago, and he said, if it is necessary, the Tobago House of Assembly will post a bond. I want to repeat that. If it is necessary, because the cruise is important to Tobago, it brings much more than the $1 million that Mr. Cavallo was said to have owed the port. And the Chief Secretary had indicated he was willing to post a bond if necessary. However, that was not the end of the story. After that conversation with the chairman of the port, the Chief Secretary called the Minister of Tourism and had a discussion with him on the matter. The Minister of Tourism agreed that that was not a reasonable way to go with treating with the Tobago House of Assembly. And with treating with the issue, the Minister committed to the Chief Secretary that he will have a conversation with his colleague, Minister Maraj, with a view to having the situation reviewed and having that decision to bar the entry of the ships rescinded. And therefore, given that conversation, there was no need for the Chief Secretary or the Tobago House of Assembly to commit to posting the bond. The Chief Secretary had a second conversation with the Minister of Tourism, and the same thing was agreed, that he will have a conversation with the Minister of Transportation with a view to having that decision rescinded. However, the history is that 2 ships were stopped. Fortunately, it was at close to the end of the cruise season. 2 ships were debarred from entering, 3 calls because one of those ships was supposed to call twice.
Also addressing the media was Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development, Dr. Ansam London. Dr. London spoke about the Auditor General's report on the Assembly for 2004 and 2005. He emphasized that the report showed no evidence of corruption in the THA.
As I explained to the House last week, it's not a forensic audit. I think in the light of that, we need to remember that the auditor provided, and I say this slowly, no evidence of fraud, misrepresentation, or malfeasance. There is nothing in these reports that would lead anybody, any reasonable person, to any conclusion that, or inference that occurred. And I think it's important to say that because people with their own political agendas read things and imply certain behavior of other people.
Tackling crime through youths is the goal that came out of a consultation on crime through the National Mentorship Program. The project is aimed at youths between the age of 9 and 25. Celebrating its first anniversary, the National Mentorship Program held an awards function and closing ceremony for a recently concluded 10-day camp in Tobago.
What the program seeks to do is pair up a role model with an at-risk youth. The program has appealed to the general public to volunteer their time and experience to mentor or guide our nation youth. Once that person has volunteered his time, we do a face-to-face interview, we do a police background check, we do a psychological assessment, and then we take them through the paces of a 30-hour training. The training along with the experience will give them the necessary tools to be able to properly mentor one of our nation youth.
The program is an initiative of the Ministry of National Security. Committee member Anne-Marie Kwame Allen describes the Mentee Orientation Camp and its benefits.
We are having a Mentee Orientation Camp for the young men of Tobago so that when we match them with mentors to have their one-year relationship, they'd be prepared with discipline and verve and gait so we can have good young men going forward. What is happening is in the Mentee Orientation, we climatize the young ones to discipline, how to speak, how to conduct themselves, understand where they are, look at some of the needs that they have as young people before we match them. What they would learn is self-discipline, and what they would learn is camaraderie with other young people.
Speaking on behalf of the mentors, Corporal Eastman of the Defense Force Reserves explained why parents should allow their children to enter the program.
It's a very nice program. It's very interesting, right? And given the fact that, as we say, charity begins at homes and ends abroad, not everyone would be that fortunate. So I guess that is why the program is here to assist. So I would encourage any parent, guardian, to send the children, send them and let them learn something. They're always anxious and learn because they've been placed in an environment where more or less they are total strangers. So you find they come together, they would cooperate with one another. It's obvious, human nature would have the little teething pulling and tugging, but we are able to deal with it and show them that it's not the correct way, and show them ways and means that they could do certain things and avoid the conflict.
One of the mentees, Jabari Lewis, said he would encourage his peers to attend the camp and shared what he will take away from the 10 days.
So I will encourage other young people to get involved, because here you learn a lot and the people are very kind and friendly and very open and honest, and here you get to socialize and meet new people and you learn a lot of stuff, and I've learned how to work together and bond together with my peers. Always be positive about yourself. Not everybody's perfect, and you just try your best at life and try to make the best out of it.
More entrepreneurs, fish breeding and quality HIV training. These were just some of the suggestions of advancing Tobago's economic prospects in the recent public consultation, which reviewed the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Tobago. Held at the Mount Irving Bay Hotel, the consultation saw a wide cross-section of Tobagonians conferring on Tobago's way forward for the period 2013 to 2017. Sophie Guillaume has more.
What ideas are coming together today in the terms of rebuilding the human capital of this island, in terms of education, in terms of higher education? And notice I didn't say certification. There are lots of certificates going around. But what we're talking about, it's taking the human capital of Tobago to another level.
Ideas coming out of the review of the Economic Development Plan should help shape proposals for future budgets. Moreover, according to Chief Secretary Orville London, the consultation should demonstrate Tobago's readiness for internal self-governance.
So therefore, coming out of this exercise has to be a signal to Tobago, the country and the region, that we in Tobago know what we're doing, know what we have to do, and have the will to do it.
Mr. London added that the consultation should also send a signal that it is about people and not just economics. In his overview, Dr. Ralph Henry noted that while a lot has been achieved from the previous plan, there were still some challenges.
There was not enough buy-in in respect of the CEDP 2006-2010. And that is represented in a lack of awareness of the CEDP and its contents. There were communication challenges, and unfortunately the CEDP did not always guide the work of the THA and its departments. But having said that, we can see that a lot has been achieved. The economic infrastructure has been expanded, and Cove to some extent represents part of that. The physical infrastructure has been expanded in myriad ways, including, of course, roads, bridges, etc.
The participants were broken into groups to discuss 5 developmental areas: social infrastructure and human resource development, business development and entrepreneurship, aquaculture, fish, food and the environment, governance and institutional reform, and physical infrastructure and utilities. The recommendations of the consultation are to be collated and made available to the public.
They'll be able to get soft copies, hard copies from my office. The document will likely be tabled in the House, in the legislature, my office, in libraries, in schools, wherever. That document is going to be made available.
Sophie Guillaume, Department of Information.
Tobago has won 2 places on the national under-16 netball team. The team recently returned from a championship tournament in St. Kitts Nevis. Players who excelled at both the sports and academics got big rewards from leading financial institutions. Omadara Mills has the highlights of the 2012 Netball Awards ceremony.
For the second consecutive time, Tobago was able to produce netballers for the Trinidad and Tobago national under-16 team, which participated in a championship tournament in St. Kitts Nevis. This came from Tobago Netball Zone Secretary Charmaine Archer.
Anicia was selected for the second consecutive time, while Lenicia, who had been knocking on the selector's door, was third time lucky and made the final team.
Tobago Netball Zone Secretary Archer also briefed those gathered on the achievements of Tobago's young netballers at the National Secondary Schools netball competitions.
The zone continues to be a dominant force at all national competitions, winning all 4 age group team shooting on under 13s, Scarborough Diamonds, under 15s and under 17 Bishops, and over 17 Signal Hill Secondary. In the individual shooting category, we also won all the national titles except in the under 17 age group, and in the under 13 age group, we won all the individual positions as well.
Netball isn't just a game, but training for life. And Vice President of Netball of the Americas, Martha Archer, advised the young netballers to continue playing the sport since it can enhance their overall development.
Netballers work hard, and you can achieve. Remember, netball is just like your schoolwork. You're on court, you got to think. This should help to develop your skills. It's like you're doing maths, you've got to practice in order to get better. Similarly with netball. So it relates to your schoolwork. Do not let that deter you, your schoolwork, from playing sport, because it enhances the individual's overall development.
Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, Huey Cadet, also advised the young netballers that they can pursue academics, career and motherhood while being involved in netball.
Sport has a lot to offer for your own personal development, your own professional development, and it could go in tandem with motherhood, with careers, with academic, all of that.
Finally, netballers who excelled in both academics and netball were given bursary awards which totaled $17,000 in units. They were Atasha Hopkins and Anicia Batiste of Scarborough Secondary School, and Natisha Rajman and Anathia Job of Bishop's High School. I am Umadara Mills for the Department of Information.
Master your music, master your instrument, and then forget all that you have learned and just play. This was just one of the tips given to students and teachers who attended the jazz workshop at the Signal Hill Secondary School. Omadara Mills reports on the newest addition to the 2012 Tobago Jazz Experience.
This workshop really taught me, and they've really focused on approach and what steps should be taken in order to get into the jazz industry. And that is one of the fundamental things that someone should know.
Participants were treated to demonstrations and the fundamentals of jazz music such as jazz drumming, harmony and improvisation. Facilitator on the keyboard, John Arnold, shared a few points on how to achieve harmonic songs in jazz.
The second thing in the jazz is really about keeping it really close all the time so that your hands stop moving, so it becomes harmonically richer. Last tip, which I tell everyone, is it's hard work, but you must learn what we call 2-5-1 for jazz. You must learn 2-5-1 in all the keys.
You have to know your scales, melodies and the songs and practice with your instruments. These were the tips shared by guitarist Theron Shaw when he spoke on the elements of improvisation in jazz.
There's no replacement for practicing your instrument. And I say it again, no replacement for practicing your instrument. Take time, no replacement. Not Facebook, not YouTube. All the things can help you, it can help you. But if you don't get on the instrument and play it, you're not going to see the results.
Participants learned that jazz was influenced by other types of music which include blues, spiritual, European and even tango. As such, drummer Sebastian Lubber stated that you have much more freedom when you play jazz drums. In the end, students were able to practice some of what they learned.
One of the things I learned is that the fact that music has a lot of different components, as simple as they may sound, you can use them to form all sorts of different things along with using your creativity.
Well, what I stood out is when Mr. Arnold soon teaches us harmonic textures and stuff on the keyboard. I love jazz, so I feel this harmonic texture will really improve me, especially in the area of jazz.
Jazz workshops for 2012 were held at the Signal Hill Secondary School and the Speyside High School. This educational aspect of Tobago Jazz 2012 was done to engage the young generation of Tobago's musicians in the art form. I am Umadara Mills for the Department of Information.
We go to a short break.
Yeah, people, fisheries fishing tournament will be starting on the 13th and the 14th of June. Here, what kind of prizes they have? They have in a Mazda pickup, 2 boats, and other prizes. Fellas, we want all you to come out and register now. Look when we start to catch tuna, ocean guard, and dolphin. Come out in your numbers and register now for this fishing tournament.
Welcome back. In the mood for some soothing jazz? Well, this is just what patrons got with jazz on the waterfront at the Scarborough Esplanade. Omadara Mills was there and brings the highlights.
There is no greater love in all the world, it's true. No greater love than what I feel for you.
From artists performing their own versions of popular jazz songs to original compositions, jazz lovers heard some of the island's best jazz performers. Here's one of the selections performed by jazz artist Derek Hines.
I hear the crystal raindrops fall, and the beauty of it all is when the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, and I want to spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us. Just the two.
Who Can Be My Lover was one of the selections performed by lyrical lounge artist Nzinga Job.
If you practice the kind of self-care I'd admire, and your acts fit the ideals to which you aspire, if you're physically, mentally fit for my fire, then boy, you on your way, brother. You can be my lover.
A lyrical lounge duet served the crowd some social commentary, rhapsody poetry style, while artist Melina Bascom served up some smooth jazz.
So long that you can find a day, no day so wrong that you can find a way.
Where the system set is like we're destined to be doomed, and the cemeteries know I'm more filled than the schools. So the only classroom is the corner, your honor. Corrupt judges and lawyers, but on that day they will be crying, while the children's faces full with light. Said on that day they will be grieving. Don't you ever give up your fight when you're right. I said, don't fear, keep dreaming, and I know one day we will finally meet. Oh yeah, don't fear.
Come on, let's party. On Castara Bay, that is. This year, Northside Tobago got a taste of the Tobago Jazz experience with a big twist. Omadara Mills attended and reported that patrons jammed to the songs of reggae from artists such as Positive and Prophet Benjamin.
Island Vibes was brought to the 2012 Tobago Jazz experience with local acts such as Hypestar, Kabesi, and Kwame McLean, showing their lyrical talent with original reggae tunes.
Listen, I want a girl who is good in the kitchen, cook my food while finger licking. I want a girl who run down KFC chicken or Royal Castle.
Sometimes when I think about my daughter, my eye just start to run water. I'm thinking about the rape and the slaughter that's going on, and things ain't getting better, but these are the youths of our future. We have to make it better for them youths, yeah. Remember they're looking up to we, so let's remind them that they should always be, I say, pure in their hearts, pure in their mind.
Big names such as Positive, Ziggy Ranking, and Prophet Benjamin had the crowd rocking to their reggae beats.
Them fi know by now, me have successfulness deep in my brains, me not quit now. So we keep Babylon can move all of them chains. Me a own and I give up the trouble for no man. We can't miss, remember this now. I'm reaching for the highest of heights. No bad mind can pull me down, go there. Emmanuel, my pension plan, we no make that. My life insurance, it fill my heart and my mind. Well, who know this song in Castara? Sing it with me, sing with me. What I tell couldn't do for me, what was not alright. Them will couldn't do for me, what King Selassie. Nico couldn't do for me, what Emmanuel do for me. Sajiko can do what Marcus Garvey do for me.
Reggae patrons had a few words regarding their Castara Bay jazz experience.
I just came over today and my friends dragged me along and it's been a really good night.
Some of the artists I know and I know they are good performers. So I think it can only get better next year and the years to go on.
I needed to hear some roots and culture. I really didn't intend to stay so long, but I love it.
So I'm hoping that events like these will continue in Castara for years to come.
I am Umadara Mills for the Department of Information.
Over the years, patrons to the Tobago Jazz World Music Night have been thrilled and serenaded. In 2011, it was Gramps Morgan and Trey Songs, but this year featured 3 foreign acts: Barrington Levy, Emily Sandy, and Janelle Monet. Sophie Guillaume has more.
If you didn't know who she was before, her performance guaranteed you'd never forget her. Scottish-born Emily Sandy wowed the crowd with her riveting performance.
Put it in your pocket, don't tell anyone again, yeah. It'll be the one you run to, the one that say, yeah. It'll be a daddy, daddy. If you take it, you can let it, daddy. Oh, daddy, daddy. Oh, we ain't falling under. We are full of wonder. When the money's spent and all my friends are vanished, and I can't seem to find no help or love for free. Yeah, I know there's no need for me to panic, 'cause I'll find him next to me.
She was followed by Jamaican reggae sensation Barrington Levy. Hit after hit, Levy had the audience dancing and singing along.
You're living dangerously. Oh, you're living too dangerous for me. Living dangerously. Does it be a Barrington Levy? I'm too wet. Too wet for someone to. I'm too experienced to be taken for a ride. And I know it's not my foolish pride. We've been together for so long, and we've been through so much. Try to do right, but everything I do seems to go. If I didn't love you, baby, I'd be long gone. I need you now, I need you to be strong.
There was never a dull moment as Janelle Monet graced the stage with her theatrical performance. Along with her hits, Janelle fed the audience cover versions of Prince and the Jackson 5.
So you think I'm alone, but being alone's the only way to. When you step outside, you feel like fighting for your sanity. And this is a call, you better know what you're fighting for. This is a call, do you know what you're fighting for? I don't care where we go, I don't care what we do. I don't care, pretty baby, just take me with you. I had you to myself, I didn't want you around. Those pretty faces always made you stand out in the crowd. But someone picked you from the bunch, one glance was all it took. Now it's much too late for me to take a second look. Oh, baby, give me one more chance. So you're gonna love me, won't you please let me?
Sophie Guillaume, Department of Information.
From the streets of Laventille to the streets of South Carolina, David Rudder with his African rhythms and Angie Stone with her soulful R&B had patrons literally dancing in the rain. The closing night of the Tobago Jazz Experience also had the crowd wooed and wanting more from Bajan saxophonist Arturo Tapin. Before leaving you with highlights from the Pigeon Point Heritage Park, on behalf of the Tobago House of Assembly and the Department of Information, thank you for viewing. I am Avian Parks. See you next week.
Lord, I pray that some sweet day I will no longer have to roam Trinity to the bone. We go to the bone.
Back in the 70s, I was the source, the designer of the rhyme, and I set the course to the other MCs that would be lost without a masterpiece made by the boss. And yes, I was a decade in my career, cause I'm an originator and a pioneer. See you other MCs, I did not fit, cause I eat from like it better when I know you're there. Throw your hands in the air. Wait from like you just don't care. If you feel good and this thing is right, everybody say